Hey everyone, how's it going? And welcome back to Diary of an Olympic Triathlete. We're now in week 7, and I have some good news. The doc has cleared me to run. I can get back to running. I can get back to working out. I am super excited. I just had the appointment this morning, which, by the way, small side note here. I'm gonna start doing Diary of an Olympic Triathlete on Tuesday. I know I said I was gonna start doing it on Monday, which that hasn't even happened, but it's going to be on Tuesdays now if I can stay consistent with it because that's when I'm having my doctor's appointments. Um, and I figured that it just makes sense to have the appointment on Tuesday and then be able to make the video Tuesday to update y'all because otherwise it's like I'm making the video and then I have the appointment and then it's a week before I make the next video. So it's like, anyway, that's how I think it's best that we do things. So I had my appointment today, which we're now 2 weeks out from the operation, like 2 weeks after 15 days to be exact. Um, and yeah, so we went to the appointment and I knew that we were going in. The main thing was to take out my stitches because they said after 2 weeks, that's when we start taking out stitches. Um, and so we did that. It hurt more than I expected it to be honest, because they had to like stick the scissor things in the wound and like cut them. So that wasn't very fun, but fortunately it's pretty quick. They said everything's looking good in terms of the healing. It's starting to, everything's starting to heal up. There's no infection, which means we're probably out of the woods in terms of me having an infection because normally if I was going to have one, it would have showed up by now. So that's good. And then my dad and I asked the doctor, we're like, hey, so physical activity, what will I be able to do? We were hoping that I could maybe get cleared to do stationary bike. I actually thought that wasn't going to be possible. Like I thought he was going to say, no, just keep doing your walks, but you can't do any physical activity yet. Because what they had told me was until 4 weeks post-op, so 2 weeks from now, that's when we're going to finally start doing finger mobility. So I just kind of assumed that up until that point, no physical activity. Um, I mean, I don't even have another appointment until 2 weeks from now. So when we start that, so I was like, I assumed he was going to be like, no, just keep everything the same, and that's it. But we were like, okay, maybe optimistically, he could be open to like me doing stationary bike. So we asked him, and it was funny. He even said it very casually. He's like, yeah, you can start running. And I was like, what? he was like, yeah, you're wearing the brace. There's no risk of you falling and hurting the finger. So, yeah, I think you're good to go. Just, use your head, obviously, like don't put yourself in harm's way, but otherwise go for it. And I was like, damn, that is beyond what I expected him to even say. Cause I was like, I didn't even think I could start running again. Like I was circling May 21st on the calendar because that's my next appointment. I was like, that's probably when I'll get cleared. But I was even thinking there's a chance then he wouldn't clear me. Like I thought there was a chance we would get to that appointment, he'd be like, no running. And then after that, the next appointment following that one would not be for another month. And I was like, it's possible I could go 2 months and still not be able to run. But then 2 weeks out from or 2 weeks post operation, he comes in. He's like, "Yeah, you can start running." Because, well, the way he explained it to me is he's like, I can see it's important to you running, and I don't see it posing that much of a risk. So I think you're fine. Um, and yeah, so there we are. I got cleared to run, and with that, bike as well, stationary bike, not like road bike. Like we actually didn't get into the specifics of the bike part, but I'm like, let's just go stationary bike for now because I don't even have a physical bike here in the US. Like when I was doing all my triathlon training before, it was always on a stationary bike because I am quite a tall person. And so we have bikes from when I was younger, but we never bought one, now with my current height. So none of the current bikes fit me. So that's actually something that I want to do triathlon later in the summer, and we're gonna have to figure out the bike situation. Either we buy one or we rent one or something, but we'll figure that part out later. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I know stationary bike is okay because I'm not putting pressure on the finger because you have different ways you can support your hands. On a road bike, it's not as like we don't want to risk that yet because in theory I could be putting pressure on it. Like that's just a personal thing because the doctor didn't say anything. It was just me being like, okay, let's not. And I've done a lot of research as well with this whole hand situation. So I'm like, I know kind of what the guidelines are looking like. Like, road biking is going to have to wait a while and swimming is obviously going to have to wait a while. But the running, that's the important one because that's my favorite discipline and that's where I have my goal set. I can already start. So, dude, I'm excited. We're getting to that running, bro. Actually, literally, I got home from the appointment and the first thing I did was, well, first I had breakfast because I was very hungry because we went to the appointment at like 8:15 in the morning, which for me is an ungodly hour. So I pretty much rolled out of bed and just got in the car with my dad and we went. But so I got home, had a nice breakfast, and then I went for a run because I was like, this is the first time a doctor said yes, go for a run in a month or like over a month because let's see, I got injured. It's April 11th, I want to say. I gotta check the calendar here, but I know it was a Wednesday. Um, so no, it was April 10th, I guess. Huh. Either way. Yeah, it was either April 10th or April 11th. I think it was April 10th because it was a Wednesday. Anyway, point is, I got injured a month ago, and since then it's been keep your hand elevated, no doing any sports stuff, no whatever, like don't be going crazy with anything, like just relax. And now finally the doctor told me, he's like, it's fine, you can go for it. It just felt really liberating. So, obviously I still had to wear this brace, but I went out for a nice little jog about 2 miles. I have this kind of loop that I do for my recovery runs here in my city in Pittsburgh. And so, yeah, I went out for that loop. I felt pretty good. I was keeping it, low rate of exertion. The one thing here is that in Pittsburgh is quite hilly, so it's actually hard to maintain a low rate of like effort, a low effort level, because even if you're going up a hill, it's gonna feel pretty hard, and heart rate got up too. But felt good. I felt good the entire run. I was taking everything as light as possible, and yeah, I just did the 2 miles. Took me about 25 minutes because I was going, my recovery pace is like 12-minute mile pace more or less, and then I got home. The thing is, my watch afterward, my Garmin was telling me like it was giving me numbers that I normally get from when I do very intense runs. Like the first thing is it gave me a VO2 max reading, which normally a VO2 max reading you only get when you're going at you're going pretty hard. So I've gotten them during tempo runs and during interval sessions, but never during a recovery run. That's the first one. I think it's because it's the first time I've ran in a month, and so the Garmin's like, oh, he did activity. But also because, obviously I lost quite a bit of fitness being off of all exercise for a month. So then it's also it was also harder. Like I was getting higher heart rates for what felt like a low, amount of exertion. Like I was in zone 3 for most of the run and actually getting into zone 4. Like there were a couple of points where I was getting into zone 4, and that was going at 12-minute mile pace. So obviously that's because I'm just coming back, which means I have to take everything very lightly. Like that is the plan, is take everything as lightly as possible. Obviously I have a desire to run. I have these goals in mind, so I want to keep pushing towards those, but it's take everything one day at a time. So my plan, since I've been allowed to start running again and sooner than I ever imagined, is that. So I did my run today. This week I'm going to do 3 runs. Next week, 3 to 4, and then we're just going to kind of go from there. I'm going to do 3 sessions. So that's either runs or some cross training, which would mean a bike. I like a bike session. So we're going to kind of go between that. I did my run today. I'm going to take tomorrow off. Thursday, I have a plan with my dad that we're either going to run or bike, depending on what the feeling is. And then I think Saturday as well, I'll do a run. And then strength. So I also want to do strength sessions, and that's going apart from my workouts. Or apart from my running, my cardio sessions. So I did my first strength session last Friday. And it was really hard. It was extraordinarily difficult. And that was entirely body weight. Like I was using no weights. My plan is to do 2 strength sessions a week. And so I was thinking, okay, I'll start with that, habit now because I can't do cardio. So I might as well do some strength. So that way, once I start running, I'll have stronger legs, right? That was kind of the principle. And I was like, I thought I was going to have 3 weeks. So I did my first strength session, again, all body weight, just like some squats, calf raises, the basics. And it it was so bad. It was just way harder than I thought it was. It impacted me a lot more than I thought it would, because I did this session, it went okay. I was just doing a lot of sets, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's I did 3 sets per leg of each exercise, doing 10 to 15 reps. And I generally have just strong legs anyway. So I thought okay, they can use a little wear and tear. They could not. I finished that session. I did everything I could to recover properly. I stretched. I even foam rolled afterwards because I could feel the lactic acid build up during the routine. And then I spent the next 3 days suffering for that decision, because Um, yeah, it was not good. I like Saturday I woke up and literally anytime I had to stand up or sat down, I felt like a grandpa. Like it was legitimately I was making noises. Like my mom heard me at one point and it was like, Jonah, you're too young to be making those noises. And I was like, I know, but it was so bad. Like I was getting out of the car one time and like you just hear me go like, ugh, because like it was just like everything was sore and stiff and like I tried to do everything correctly, but obviously I hadn't done like an intense strength session in my legs in a while because I'd started incorporating strength into my triathlon training right as I got injured. Like literally it was like 3 days before I did my first training session for legs and arms and all that, and then I got injured. And then as I was in Valencia before I came back to the US, I did one leg session there, and then once I got here, I was like, all right, let's start reincorporating the strength. So I really haven't done many strength sessions with my legs. So even though it's only body weight, it was a lot of reps, I think. So I might have to look at a little bit how we can organize that whole situation. But I do want to have 2 strength sessions a week. That'll be my ideal. Do one on Friday. So I'm going to try this Friday to do a strength session again. I might try to reorder a little bit the exercises. But like my plan is just do 20 minutes to 25 minutes of body weight, high rep, low intensity strength. Because that's what you're supposed to do for injury prevention, leg strength. And that's my goal is injury prevention. As above anything else is like have good, strong legs that nothing's going to get torn, no shin splints, no calf twinges, no whatever. Because I'm like, this is enough for me. This is enough injury to last me 2 years. And I feel like this isn't even that bad either. Like on the whole scale of like injuries that could keep you out of running because you get an ACL tear and that's gonna keep you out a lot longer. So, yeah, I want to do one on Friday, and then also I want to do one like Monday. And the advice I've heard for strength training is you should do it on a day that's already intense. So, like for instance, you do an interval session, and then that day you also do your strength because that way, like you have your heavy days are heavy and your light days are light. Like then you have your recovery run the next day, and then you have your day off, or you do your cross training after. But like you're not like constantly pounding like each day. It's all right, intense intervals, and then all right today's strength, and then today's whatever. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it is like I want to do 2 sessions a week and those are going to coincide with probably my interval, my tempo, something like that. And then I will do whatchamacallit. I've also thought of trying to maybe do a session in the gym at some point, as in like a weight session, where like I'm lifting more heavyweight because of course body weight exercise is really good. Like it builds up your muscles, it makes you stronger, but it's relative strength that you're working on, and also your absolute strength. That's another thing that you can train, and that's separate, and you need weights for that. Obviously, with how my hand is, it does limit somewhat what I can do because I can't do like squats, for instance, because you can't you have to hold the bar. But I could do like leg press, and there's a bunch of stuff that I could do in theory in the gym. And of course, once I get finger mobility back too. So I thought maybe if I'm feeling really motivated, I could do 3 sessions a week. Like I could do, my 2 body weight and then 1 like of just like weights, or be splitting that in between, like, do the 2 sessions, but 1 will be weights and 1 will be body weight. Maybe that's I'm thinking like I'm going between those 2 options. But I'm just going to start with what can I do sustainably. So I'm going to do 2 because I want this summer to be a time where I can build up some muscle because I know when I go off to college, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to maintain muscle while I'm there. And then also like I've been thinking, once the summer's over, looking at trying to maybe either get back to the point where I do an Olympic triathlon or looking at doing some swim runs or the big idea that I have is do a half marathon because there's one in Malaga in December that I know some people who are going to do it. So obviously that's looking way down the road, but I'm like, if I'm in half marathon training mode, you're doing a lot of running, a lot of long runs, and you don't have as much time or like the ability to do much strength training. So like what I've heard is when you're in that mode of your training for like a big race, you're supposed to do 1 session a week. That's kind of like maintenance and activation more than like strength building. So like that's what I'd started doing when I was training for my Olympic triathlon. And then what I heard is like when you're in kind of an off season, which I would consider what I'm in right now is like an off season because I'm still coming back from my injury and like, none of the races I'm going to be doing this summer are like main A races. They're more, BC level races. They're still important to me, but they're not like, massive events. So I think I can dedicate a little bit more time to strength, and obviously like my training load for like my cardio is not going to be as intense. So I think that should be okay. But anyway, yeah. So that's the good news. I can start running again. 3 runs this week, and then my recuperation plan. I'll be talking about this more next week, and I think I might actually do like a little screen share video where I can like show you all my calendar, because I have a calendar with like all the important events that are going to be happening, and like every day I put my my training program and whatnot. My thought is this: that I will slowly start building up. This week it's going to be all slow, easy runs, build up a little bit of mileage. So like today was 2 miles. The next time is going to be 2 as well, or it'd be a bike that's an equivalent effort. And then the run on Saturday probably as well might be slightly longer, but we'll keep it like in that range. And then next week keep doing that, like another 2 miler, maybe move it up to do like a 3-4 miler. And then I'm kind of debating like either I could try to do next week, just do 4 runs, or I could try to do 3, but one will be a tempo. I'm kind of tempted to do a tempo next week, because then what I want to do. So I've mentioned this before. My goals for this summer, which now become even more possible because I've increased by 2 weeks the amount of time I have. So already gates are open to start training. I just need to listen to my body, obviously. But I think if next week, if I'm feeling a tempo session, I'll try to go for it. We'll just kind of see, what everything's indicating to me, because I don't want to go too crazy. But I think I want to start putting some tempo in there, because my goals for this summer, what are my goals? My goal number 1 is to do a mile in 6 minutes, do a sub 6 minute mile. And there are various opportunities I will have to be able to do that. I think in the next video I make in this series, I might talk to y'all about kind of the races I'm looking at as well. So next week is going to be looking at the calendar, and I'm going to be showing y'all my training routine and then the races I'm kind of looking at, because I want to do a 6 minute mile, sub 6 mile. There are various track meets that we're looking at doing, and then also some road miles. And then if I can't do it in any of those, my plan is end of summer, like absolutely like right before I leave for college, we'll do a time trial, because I've mentioned this before a couple times. I want to do my sub 6. My dad wants to do a 5:40. So I kind of the thought that we could do that together. It's like a dual time trial, and that would be a really cool event for us to kind of share together. So that's a possibility. And, but with that, so I want to do that mile. But the thing is, I have not run a mile time trial in a really long time. Like the last time I ran one, I was 17. And at that point, I wasn't really a runner. I was just it was COVID. I hadn't jogged in forever. Like I just kind of showed up and ran, and I ran at 7:30. So obviously it's not my max capacity. I've used some race converter things, and they claim that I should be capable, based on my 5K times, of running a 7-minute mile if I were to run all out. So I want to test that theory. I'm going to give myself 2 to 3 weeks to kind of regain my fitness, and then I'm going to go to the track with my dad and potentially my brother, and we'll just do we'll do just a time trial, just to like see where am I at to set a baseline, and is that 6-minute mile within reach. I think it is. My guess is I can run a sub 7 with obviously take some couple of weeks to slowly build things up, do a couple of tempo runs, and then we'll just go to the track and see what happens. But I think it's it's going to be difficult to obviously because if I can run whatever a 6:55 mile, let's say, to get it down to 6, that's going to take some dedication, but I think it's possible. There's actually a small part of me that was wondering, it's like, what if I could already run a 6-minute mile? That would suck a lot of life out of the whole thing. But I'm like, nah, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I'm going to show up and just on the track in 3 weeks and be like, yep, I just ran 6 minutes, because that's really difficult. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, so that's kind of my very short-term goal is some kind of mile time trial within 2 to 3 weeks. And I might even have a short video on the channel about that, depending on what we end up doing there. But so mile time trial, and get a sub 6 mile. The other one is a sub 24-minute 5K, which that's been a goal for a while, that I've never completely broken. Like I've gotten really close in a triathlon. I ran in 24:14, but I have never run 24. And so I want to I'll just be intermittently doing 5Ks whenever I can kind of find the time. Like my focus is going to be training for my mile. So, but like in general, mile training and 5K training is not that different because mainly every week what you're doing is some kind of long run, some kind of tempo run, and then some kind of interval session, and then everything else is recovery runs, cross training, strength training. The only thing that can really change is like maybe your tempos could be a little different, and your interval training is going to be different. Your intervals is the biggest. Like because for the mile, my plan is to do just 400s. Versus if I was running a 5K, I would do mile repeats instead. That's kind of my bread and butter. So that's the biggest thing that's going to change. But like overall, if you're getting fitter, your times in both events are going to improve. And if I'm racing enough 5Ks, that would almost kind of replace that in a way. So like, because basically what I could do is if I say I have a 5K one week, okay, so doing the 5K is obviously going to improve my 5K time. It's going to improve my fitness. And then that replaces whatever the tempo run was that week. So then I just do my session, my interval session for the mile, and then my recovery runs and my whatever. And there we go. And I've worked everything up. So they're compatible in a way, those two events, because they are like if I was training for a mile and a marathon, they're not as compatible. They're still like compatible because they're both running, but like 5Ks and miles, they're both considered all out events in a way. Like they're both considered you're redlining for a good amount of it. You're going under your lactate threshold, Um, so, or over, is it over your lactate threshold or under? Like, as in you're going on a speed that is faster than your lactate threshold, basically in both events. So there's that part of things. So my goal is if I could hit both of those time goals, I think that'd be awesome. And obviously just have a good time in the races, the events. Like I've not raced in a track meet in so long, you guys. Like, because I never did track really. I only did track 1 year, and I didn't really enjoy it while I was doing it because my parents made me do it. It was I was in middle school, and I think I did 1 or 2 track meets, and like looking back on it, it was really fun because you're doing I did the 200 and the 4x100. And there's like fun events. Like it's just a cool atmosphere. Like you're in that track setting, you're like racing people. You're literally like you look on the lane or to the lane on each side, and it's like you see people there. I just think that's going to be really cool. And so we found, as I said, we found a couple track meets. The first one is in like mid-June, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for like my first attempt. I doubt there's no way I get a 6-minute mile on that one, but maybe like a 6.5 potentially. Or really that would just be kind of my first indicator of like, okay, race conditions, surrounded by the people, what's that going to look like? And then just have a good time, obviously. And then kind of early August, there's a track meet that's the one that I'm kind of circling as like, if I'm going to get a 6-minute mile at a meet, it would be this one. But then there's a couple other races as well that I have my eye on. So, that's the important thing as well. Just have a good time, make good memories at these races. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, I remember right when I got injured, I saw this video by YouTuber. I think his name is Mark Andrews, if I remember correctly. He's a British guy who like used to be pretty overweight, but then he got in shape through running, and now he makes a bunch of fitness content, and so he talks a lot about that. And right as I got injured, he made this video. It feels like, see, there's moments that I think we like live in a simulation, or there's some God or something out there that's like orchestrating things, because just perfect timing. I get injured and he makes this video about how, like, what do you do to overcome losing fitness and just in general being out of action because of injury or because of, whatever, because you get busy. And basically what he talked about in the video was, first off, what you remember from an event isn't the time necessarily, it's the experience, which that's true. Because like you think in 40 years down the road, you're not going to be looking back at some race you did and be like, oh, well, that was a bad race because I did a 4-hour 1-minute marathon instead of a 4-hour marathon. What you're going to be thinking about is, what was the ambiance like in the race? How was the crowd? How was the noise? Like, what were all the sights that you were seeing? Who's the friend that you were running with? What were you feeling during that time? You're not going to worry that much about, like, did I get the time I was looking for or not? Like, obviously the times are good. They're a motivator and they can drive you. Like, if I didn't have this goal of this 6-minute mile, I probably wouldn't be running all these track meets. I wouldn't be as motivated in that way as like now, I have this goal. But if I run the track meet and I run a 6:05 mile versus a 6-minute mile, I'm still going to be like, that's a really fast mile. And that was a good event. I had a good time. So that's the biggest thing I'm looking for. It's just have fun, like that's what this has made me realize too, is like just being able to be out there and do these events and prioritizing what is interesting to you, versus just what you think you should do is the most important. Because I almost feel like with the Olympic triathlon, I was doing it because it was just the next natural step. I feel like, all right, I did a super sprint, I did a sprint, now I got to do an Olympic. And like I wasn't gonna say I wasn't excited, but there was definitely a small part of me that was like, I have other things that excite me a bit more that I would rather tackle. And I'll get around to this eventually, but like, so, but obviously I was still excited about the race. Like obviously it was going to be a really dope race day. So it's still a shame to miss that, but I'm going to have a lot of experiences to replace it. So I'm not too sad because, I'm going to get to do my track meets. I'm going to get to do my road races, and it's going to be a good time. So that's what I'm focused on. But yeah, so anyway, those are my goals. Those are the main two, are the 5K and the mile time. And then also I want to do sprint triathlon. There's one that we found that's mid to late August. And that one's just go and have fun. Like I don't really have any time aspirations. I'll be able to start swimming at the beginning of July. So I'll have, maybe 6 weeks to train for that, like train the swimming segment. And yeah, there I'm not looking for anything particular whatsoever. I'm just like, if I can go to the race and complete it, and have a good time, with my wetsuit and my bike and the crowds there and all that stuff, then that is fantastic. And that is what matters. So yeah, that's about it, to be honest, is, the triathlon, that's all going to kind of keep me motivated throughout the summer. But it is nice because like it kind of gives me a bit of a purpose. Like I was kind of sitting around here in the US. I'm not working at the moment. I'm not, there's like no major projects I have going on. So it's been a little easy to just feel like the days are just floating by and there's not much going on. And the running is starting to give me that purpose back, but also running is not like that of an involved, thing, because obviously you have to eat properly, you have to sleep properly, you have to, do your workouts. So it is a lifestyle in a way. But there's still a lot of time in the day that's not running, obviously. Like today I went for my run, it was 25 minutes, and then I showered, and then it was 10 o'clock still. So, and now it's 8 p.m. So, I then had, after that, 10 hours. And I mean, it's going to be 14 hours before I go to bed. So what do I do with those other 12, 14 hours in the day? Like, that's the question. So I'm still trying to figure that part out. And like, there have been some plans I've been looking at doing this summer that might interfere with my athletics a little bit, because they would require traveling and going other places, but they would also be really personally enriching. So I'm kind of balancing a couple of things at the moment. Like because I want to have these next 4 months be meaningful, not just athletically, but also just as like for me as a person. Because like, the athletics things is not the end all be all. I change interest a lot, so I can't just rely on running being like my thing that interests me, because it's possible that somewhere down the line I lose motivation, and then, all right, I got to find something else that's more inspiring to me. So we're gonna have to see. Like I'm not sure, but yeah, at the moment, just work my way up, training wise, and then trying to find, stuff to do during my days that are going to be interesting and fulfilling for me. But yeah, that's about it. That's the plan. So this week is just going on light runs, getting that fitness up, getting some mileage on my legs, and doing a little bike as well, just getting that cardio working. And then, after that, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But my goal is to get my fitness, as close to back back to where it was. Unfortunately, I hadn't been training for long enough for it to stick around very, very well. So like I've lost a lot. I could tell just like doing the run today, like, with my heart rate going up and whatnot. So we're going to have to give it some time to recover. But once it does, we got a time trial. We're going to have tempo runs. We're going to have interval sessions. We're going to do cross training. So it's going to be a fun time, I think. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to close things out here. Next week, week 8, I'll come back with some more updates from the training, and we'll take a little look at my calendar. What is this summer going to look like, and all of that fun stuff. So yeah, thanks y'all. Is that like proper English? There's sometimes that's part of the problem with like speaking other languages, and now I don't know what's proper English. Thanks y'all. Thank you guys for watching this video, is my point. It's been a pleasure to share this time with you guys. If you have any questions, comments, or whatnot, you can leave those below. If you liked the video, give it a like. You can even subscribe. I do these every week. until I get bored of them. Then I won't. But that probably won't be for a while. So subscribe if you want to keep following my fitness and recovery journey. And that is all. I will see you guys in next week's edition. Bye.